Some calls change your life forever. This was one of them. It was 2006. I was living alone in a small studio apartment in London. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. Until that night, my phone rang. It was my sister, Olivia. She never called me this late. I picked up. She was crying. Olivia crying. Please. I need you. Can you come? Narrator. Something in her voice terrified me. Olivia was always the strong one. She never asked for help. Me. I can come tomorrow. Olivia. No. I need you to move in with me. That was it. No explanation. No details. Just desperation. And just like that, I left everything behind. I packed my bags, rented out my apartment, and within a week, I was in Edinburgh. Olivia lived in an old Victorian house near the city center. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt off. It wasn't just the dim lighting or the heavy air. It was the silence. Where are your housemates? They left. Why? She hesitated, then whispered. They were scared. That night, I couldn't sleep. Olivia's house felt wrong. The walls seemed too thin. The air was heavy, almost suffocating around a.m. I heard it, a whisper, right outside my door. It wasn't Olivia. I held my breath. The whispering stopped. Then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving down the hallway. I got up and opened the door. Nothing, but the air was ice cold. And then Olivia screamed. Some things are hard to believe until they happen to you. Olivia's scream echoed through the house. I ran to her room. She was sitting on the bed, shaking, staring at the corner. Olivia. What happened? She pointed. There was something, a shadow, watching me. I looked. There was nothing. I wanted to tell her it was just a nightmare, but deep inside, I knew it wasn't. The next day, Olivia's friend Emma came over. We sat in the dimly lit living room. She looked at Olivia and sighed. I told you, this isn't normal. You need help. Help? What kind of help? She hesitated, then lowered her voice. There's someone, a man. He doesn't take money, but he can see things we can't. I almost laughed. You want us to see some kind of exorcist? Emma, call him whatever you want. But if you don't, this will get worse. I looked at Olivia. She was pale, exhausted. Fine, let's go. That evening, we drove to a small house outside the city. A blonde woman answered the door. Welcome, I'm Anna, David's wife. He'll see you soon. Inside, it looked like any other house. A cozy living room, a child's toys on the floor. Nothing strange. 3 other people were waiting. Their eyes were filled with silent fear. Then, David walked in. I expected an old, bearded mystic. Instead, he looked normal. Mid-30s, clean-shaven, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. David. Olivia, come with me. She hesitated, then followed him into another room. We waited. 10 minutes passed. Then, we heard screaming. The ritualsome things are better left unseen. But once you open the door, there's no going back. Olivia's screams pierced the air. I jumped up, ready to break the door down, but Anna stopped me. Don't. He's pulling it out, pulling WH-80 out. Then silence. The door creaked open. David stepped out, his face dripping with sweat. Olivia followed, her hands trembling. She was holding a plate full of salt, and something buried inside it. I looked closer. Among the salt were small, rusted objects. Buttons, nails, a lock, and a piece of human bone. I felt sick. We sat in silence. David lit a cigarette, his hand still shaking. Someone cursed her. A powerful curse, meant to ruin her life. Who would do this? David shook his head. That's not the real question. The real question is, why now? He looked at Olivia. This isn't over. David told me it wasn't just Olivia. You have it too. Not as strong, but it's there. I felt cold. A deep, bone-chilling cold. What do we do? David exhaled slowly. We need to pull it out. He pointed to the floor. There was a large plastic basin, a white sheet, and a bag of salt. Sit. Do exactly as I say. I sat down, my heart pounding. David filled the basin with water and sprinkled salt inside. Then he began writing strange symbols on small pieces of paper. Drop them in. I did. They floated on the surface. Then he placed a Quran on the edge of the basin, opened it, and put my hand inside the pages. Keep it steady. Do not let it fall. He did the same on the other side, his hand inside the other Quran. Then he started chanting. His voice was low at first. Then it grew louder. Arabic words, Latin phrases, some in a language I had never heard. The room felt wrong. The air grew heavier. My hands trembled. The water in the basin started to ripple. Then it turned black. Put your hand in, now. My entire body was screaming no. But I did it. I reached into the water. At first, there was nothing. Just cold water. Then my fingers touched something. Something solid, hard, cold. I pulled it out. A rock. A black smooth stone. I dropped it on the floor. My breathing was heavy. Keep going. I reached again. Another object. A wooden spoon wrapped in red thread. Then a lock. A human tooth. A piece of cloth. By the time I finished, there were dozens of objects on the floor. I felt drained. David wiped the sweat off his face and sighed. It's done. But this is only the beginning. The sacrifice. We thought it was over. We were wrong. A week after the ritual, David called us. You need to come to me, now. We rushed to his house. He was waiting outside, looking anxious. They know. Who? The ones who cursed you. They felt it break. And now they're trying to undo it. A cold shiver ran down my spine. We need to seal the ritual. You have to make a sacrifice. A sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? David's face was serious. An animal, a lamb. We have to do it properly, at the right place. Where? Never. We were stunned. A long, dangerous journey lay ahead. At sunrise, we got in the car. The drive was long, tense, and filled with silence. Every now and then, David checked his phone. What are you waiting for? A sign. 6 hours later, we arrived in Neveher. David led us to a small village, then to an old, abandoned shrine. The place felt ancient, sacred, and yet deeply unsettling. David stepped forward and whispered, "This is the place." We bought a lamb from a local farm and brought it to the shrine. David placed it on the ground and began to pray. The air felt heavy, as if something was watching us. David suddenly stopped and turned pale. What's wrong? He pointed to Olivia. Her eyes had changed. They weren't hers anymore. She smiled. But it wasn't Olivia's smile. Then she whispered in a voice that wasn't hers, "You can't stop it." And then all the candles went out. Some doors should never be opened, but we had already stepped through. The candles went out. The shrine was plunged into darkness. "Don't move. Don't say a word." Olivia stood motionless. Her eyes were black as ink. Then she laughed. But it wasn't her laugh. It was something else. Something ancient. David grabbed a bottle of saffron water and poured it over Olivia's head. She screamed. The sound was inhuman, like something being dragged from the depths of hell. "Leave her. You have no power here." Olivia collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Then everything went silent. "Is it over?" David shook his head. "No, we need to end this at its source." "Where is the source?" David looked at me. A grave. A small wooden box. David opened it, and inside was something that made my blood run cold. A doll made of hair and bones, wrapped in Olivia's old scarf. What is this?" David didn't answer. He simply took out a bottle of oil, poured it over the doll, and set it on fire. The flames rose unnaturally high. The air filled with a terrible scream, a sound that didn't belong to this world. Then silence. And for the first time in months, Olivia smiled. We never saw David again. He disappeared, his phone disconnected. But something changed after that night. Olivia got a new job. I moved to a new city. For the first time in years, life felt normal. But sometimes late at night, I still hear whispers. And I wonder, did we really end it? At AM, we arrived at an old, forgotten cemetery. David led us to an unmarked grave. It's buried here, the object that ties the curse to you. We started digging. The earth was cold and wet. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something hard. A small wooden box. David opened it, and inside was something that made my blood run cold. A doll made of hair and bones, wrapped in Olivia's old scarf. What is this?" David didn't answer. He simply took out a bottle of oil, poured it over the doll, and set it on fire. The flames rose unnaturally high. The air filled with a terrible scream, a sound that didn't belong to this world. Then silence. And for the first time in months, Olivia smiled. We never saw David again. He disappeared, his phone disconnected. But something changed after that night. Olivia got a new job. I moved to a new city. For the first time in years, life felt normal. But sometimes late at night, I still hear whispers. And I wonder, did we really end it?